Hello and welcome to our college cost calculator, where we are going to show you how to calculate the three costs of college. Now, this is a hands-on video slash training where we're going to teach you about the three costs of college, and we're going to use the calculator as we go. So pause the video, click the link below, and create your free account. Then we're going to go back and forth. We're going to teach each section of the calculator. Then we're going to jump into the calculator itself, plug in your numbers, and by the time we're done, you will know your costs of college so that you can know which costs you can reduce. Now, my name is Lance Morgan, and you can tell here that I have 5 reasons that I created this calculator. When my wife and I were having kids, we just got caught up in how cute they were and didn't exactly think about how much college was going to cost. And we didn't really have a good tool to calculate how much college was going to cost with inflation as well as loan payments. If we didn't have enough saved and we were going to have to take out some loans, then how much was my future loan payment going to be on each of the kids with the overlapping of kids? Now, even if you have one, you still need to know what your future loan payments are going to be. You need to know how much you need to save because you need to know how much college is going to cost in the future, especially if you have younger kids. So lots of things that we need to figure out when it comes to calculating the cost of college. And that's why we had this calculator made, to make it easy for you to calculate your 3 costs of college. Then we can focus on the 3 secrets to reducing the cost of college once we know what our costs even are. In Secret 1, we're going to focus on how to maximize all that free money. In Secret 2, we're going to show you how to reduce the loans and the loan payments. And then in Secret 3, we're going to show you how to reduce the opportunity cost of paying for college so that you can help your kids pay for college without sacrificing your retirement. Now, we tend to help families save thousands of dollars off the sticker price of college by maximizing all that free money, even if you make too much money to qualify for financial aid. And then we're going to show you how to save tens of thousands off the college loans and loan payments. And finally, the 3rd secret, we're going to focus on how to save hundreds of thousands of dollars off the impact of paying for college on your retirement. We call that the opportunity cost. We're going to dive into that in this video as we calculate your opportunity cost. So yes, we can help you save tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands off the cost of college. But first, what are the costs of college? Okay, so step 1, we're going to calculate the 3 costs of college for your family. Then step 2, we will identify which costs we can actually reduce and how to reduce them, and then we'll point you in the right direction of which trainings will help you to reduce the costs of college. Okay, so let's dive into it. What are the 3 costs of college? We all know that the cost of college has skyrocketed. In fact, it's all over the news. The price of college is increasing almost 8 times faster than wages. But what does that mean? What exactly are the costs of college, especially with inflation? Even if you have a senior in high school, what is the inflation going to look like each year that they're in school? In fact, this gray line down here is our inflation line. You can see that the cost of college has been way more. It has increased way more than inflation, which has created a problem for families. They're having to borrow a lot more than they wanted to, but they don't even know what their future loan payments are going to be. We're going to help you calculate all of that. So what are your 3 costs of college? Number 1, cost of attendance. You're going to hear that a lot. Cost of attendance. This is tuition and fees, okay? Room and board, books and supplies, travel. If your kid goes across the country, you might want to go visit them every week, every month, I don't know, every quarter, once a year, twice a year. You got to factor all that in, right? That's part of your cost. And then what about the number of years? How many years are your kids planning on going to college? Some of these public schools are taking kids 5-6 years to get an undergrad. Or maybe they're going to go on to graduate school, or maybe go into medical school. Whatever the case, maybe you need to calculate the number of years and then the number of students. How many kids do you have? I have 5. How many do you have? What is it going to cost with inflation for some of those younger kids? And yes, that word again, okay, inflation. You saw the red line was skyrocketing. How much is inflation going to affect your kids' costs of college? Now, even if they are senior in high school, you've still got inflation for the years that they're in school. But what about those younger kids? How much is inflation going to affect them? That's what we need to figure out. Then we need to subtract scholarships, financial aid, and students' responsibility. That gives you your out-of-pocket cost of college. Now, if you don't know your net cost of college after scholarships and financial aid estimates, then there's a button in your calculator to jump over to our college cost software to be able to help you calculate your net cost of college. Let me show you. Now, when you click on this button right here, click here. If you need help calculating the cost of attendance, it's going to take you to our software. When you sign up for our software, it's going to take you through some information about your family, including income and assets, your family's finances, and your students' information to eventually calculate what we call your SAI number. Now, we have a webinar on this that you can click on to watch more information on how to reduce this number or how this number is calculated. But basically, this is the number that is used in your schools. When you're searching for schools, it is going to take the gross cost of college minus that SAI number to figure out what your net cost of college is going to be. For example, this school over here in the middle is $58,000 retail, but after your SAI number and $13,000 in discounts from that particular school, you could be looking at a $45,000 out-of-pocket cost. However, a more expensive school you might think is going to be more expensive, but by the time you factor in the discounts from this school, your net cost at a top-tier private school could potentially even be lower than the state school over here on the left, depending on what your family's SAI number is. So even if you have younger kids, this number can be calculated way in advance, years in advance. And even if you have kids in college, it's important to understand how this formula works so that you know what your out-of-pocket is going to, and what your out-of-pocket cost is going to be for your kids. Now, at any point in time, if you get stuck at any point in time with this calculator, click this little button down here in the bottom right-hand corner and book a call with us, and we will help walk you through this calculator and answer any questions that you might have. So click that link anytime. It's on every page of the calculator. Okay, that brings us to step one of the calculator. Let's go in and dive into that calculator now and start filling out your numbers. Okay, so step one of our college cost calculator. First of all, select how many kids that you have. And of course, there's going to be the inflation is defaulting at 5%, but you can change that to whatever you want. Click on next. Maybe you have a senior in high school that has 1 year until college with planning on 4 years in college at a state school pricing, let's say of around $30,000 after estimated discounts from our software. Let's say that we have 2 years behind. We have a 15-year-old that is looking at 3 years until college, also 4 years in college, maybe looking at going out of state, a little bit more expensive possibly. Then maybe we have, let's say, a 13-year-old looking at 5 years until college, and we've got 4 years in college, also looking at a state school. And then let's say that we have our 11-year-old. We just spaced these perfectly every 2 years. And we've got, let's say, 7 years until college. And the current price of, again, let's do another out-of-state school looking at $50,000 a year, let's say. Okay, now, if you click on next, it's going to factor in inflation for each of those kids. Student 1, student 2, student 3, and student 4. Now, if you would like, you can use this cost adjustment to adjust each year. If you want to estimate some scholarships that you know about, or some financial aid that you know about, or maybe you have a rich uncle that's planning on helping out, or again, maybe the kids are responsible for part of it, okay? Then you can make those adjustments on each individual year. Then you're going to click on next, and it's going to give you a grand total for all of your kids, whether you have one or whether you have 10. It's going to break down each year and all of your kids for each one of those kids going to those schools. And then again, if this gives you sticker shock, if you're starting to panic a little bit and having maybe a little bit of a panic attack, either number one, click this button right here to learn about secret number one, which is how to maximize all that free money and reduce the cost, your out-of-pocket cost of college, or click this little button right here, have questions, and book a free call with us. And again, we are here to help. So now that we have our cost of attendance calculated, the second cost is the finance cost. Now this is the cost of attendance plus interest on loans, right? Pretty simple. The first thing to consider would be loan interest rate. That's what everybody thinks about when you take out loans. What is the loan interest rate? Something else to consider. What is your future monthly or annual payment, and for how many years? Are you looking at 10 years, which is the default? Or are you looking at 15, 20, or even 30 to make the payments more manageable? Those are all things that you have to consider. And again, you have to consider the number of students. Now, I could not find a loan calculator that would estimate multiple kids and multiple loan payments with that overlap. So again, that's why we started to create this calculator, and of course, it has evolved since then, but this will show you what your future loan payments are going to be. So we're going to click on next, and it's going to take us to our college loan breakdown, step 5, and that is going to be where we can change the loan interest rate, we can change the number of years, we can look at how that's going to affect our monthly payment. If we change that to a 20-year, it's going to change that monthly and annual payment. Okay, we can do this for each of the kids. I'm just going to leave it at 10, but we can click on student 2, student 3, student 4. Also, keep in mind that most loans are going to accrue interest while the kids are in school. That's why these are looking a little bit bigger than before, because the second you take out the first loan, it's going to grow by the time your kids graduate. So we've got kind of a breakdown of the total loaned amount, assuming that we're not going to pay cash or use our savings or whatever the case may be. So this is going to give us an estimate of our college loan breakdown. We click on next, and there's our breakdown, okay, of all of the kids. 4 kids, each of their loans over 10 years. Again, you can defer payments for 6 months until 6 months after graduation. So each kid, we could defer payments until 6 months after graduation. And that gives us a final loan balance of $1.3 million of loan payments, right? And again, if you're starting to panic as you see these numbers, don't hesitate to click here. If you have questions, book a call with us, or click right here and you can learn about secret number 2. Secret number 2 is going to teach you how to reduce these college loans and loan payments. Now, I know everyone's goal is to help your kids to graduate from college without any loans, or maybe you want to avoid loans, whatever the case may be. But there are some things to consider. Even if you have enough money to pay cash for college, I would consider some of these advanced finance cost considerations. First and foremost, for some kids, it's not much, but some kids can get subsidized Stafford loans, which means the government pays the interest while the kids are in school. That's nice, but it's usually not a huge amount. But what about income-driven repayment plans, where the loan payments are a percentage of the income of the parent, not parents, the parent that takes out the loans for so many years, certain number of years, and then the rest of the loans are forgiven. Something to consider. Also, public service loan forgiveness. If one of you works for a nonprofit organization, it's a lot less. It's a smaller percentage of your income for shorter. Like let's say 10% of your income for 10 years. Could be a huge savings instead of paying cash. Also, other things to consider. Deferred payments. You can defer loan payments while the kids are in school on most college loans. Forbearance, where maybe you have a financial setback and you need to postpone loan payments even more. Or loan forgiveness from debt or permanent disability, something to consider. And also refinancing. The government is potentially coming out with a 1% loan interest option. If they do, you're going to want to refinance your loans to a lower interest rate. Or if you have private loans, you might want to refinance every time the interest rates drop a little bit. So there's lots to consider when it comes to financing the cost of college. In other words, loan interest rates are not the most important consideration when choosing college loans. Now, if you want to learn more about what we call Secret 2 to reduce the college loans and loan payments, again, there's a button on the calculator. Just click that and it'll take you to our Secret 2 training. And as always, if you have any questions at all as you're going through the calculator, don't hesitate to click the little button down in that bottom right-hand corner and book a call with us. We are here to help. Now, the third and final cost of college, the most expensive cost of college, and the most confusing cost of college, but if you understand, will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars off the cost of college, is, drumroll please, opportunity cost. That is our third cost of college. Here's the deal. How you pay for college is 10 times more important than how much you pay for college. Everyone finances college. Now, you might say, not me, I'm going to pay cash or I'm going to use my savings, but you're still going to finance college. Let me explain. You either pay interest on loans or you give up the interest that you could have earned by paying cash or paying out of your pocket or draining your savings. In other words, there's the cost of college that we've already calculated, but then there's also what we call the opportunity cost of college. Let me explain. You save for college, and then you spend the money, and the money is gone, right? Whether you've been saving since your kids were born, or whether you're saving each month, and you're making monthly payments. Either way, you're saving, and then you're spending. It's like selling the goose that lays the golden eggs. If you spend that money, if you pay cash for college, or if you use your savings to pay for college, that money is going to be gone. It is no longer going to be earning interest. That lost interest is what we call opportunity cost. So in calculating the opportunity cost on college, you have to first ask yourself, how does the cost of college affect your retirement and your financial future? How much would you have had in retirement? Now, let me just say that I'm not trying to convince you to not help your kids pay for college. However, how you pay for their college could make hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference in your retirement. Let me explain, okay? Ask yourself, what interest rate could you have earned on your retirement savings, or how much are you currently earning on your retirement savings, and how many more years until you retire? Now, let's jump into the calculator and plug that in. So on step 7, you can put in whatever rate of return you think you could get on your retirement savings. So maybe you think you could earn a 7% return, and maybe you're planning on retiring in 20 years. So if you click on next, you'll see that in order to pay $828,000 for all 4 of your kids with overlap, and again, we got this number from our total cost of attendance from before, in order to pay $828,000 for college, instead of saving $31,000 at 7% interest, or $33,000 at 7% interest, this column represents the interest that you're not going to earn by draining your savings or paying cash. Now, when we have the overlap of all these kids in here, we're really starting to pay a lot each year for college instead of investing that money in our retirement. So you can see the opportunity cost column actually starts to get quite big as it compounds on money that you could have earned. So, in other words, if we scroll down here to the bottom, to pay $828,000 for college, for 4 years to go to college, we're going to miss out on $1.4 million of interest over 20 years, meaning that that's $2.3 million that we're not going to have in our retirement. That $2.3 million is the actual cost of paying cash or using your savings to pay for college. Now, let me give you another visual just to emphasize this a little bit more. Let's just use the round number of $100,000. Now, I'm not saying that it's $100,000 a year. I'm just saying $100,000 total. Let's just say you paid $100,000 total for one of your students to go to school. And let's just say that you could have earned 6% on that money if you didn't pay for college. So over 5 years, that's $34,000 of interest that you're not going to earn. In other words, your money could have grown to $134,000, but it's not about the 5 years. It's about the 20 years before you retire. If you're going to retire in 20 years, that $100,000 that you paid for college, and I understand that you're going to pay it over 4 years or 5 or 6 or whatever, but just as an example, that $100,000 that you're going to pay for your kid's college is not going to earn that 6% interest, which means you're not going to have $331,000 in your retirement over the next 20 years by paying $100,000 for your kids to go to school. Now again, your numbers are all going to be different. Look in your calculator under total sticker price for your total, and then you can see your missed interest and your opportunity cost in these first few columns here. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see your total cost of attendance, the interest that you're going to miss out on by paying for college, and that will give you your total opportunity cost in your calculator. Now, this is where it gets even more confusing because we don't just have the cost of college if we pay cash or the opportunity cost, we also have the opportunity cost on loans. Now, this is where it gets very, very confusing because if I borrow money to pay for college, then we have loan interest, right? We've got loan interest. Let me show you. So let's say that I borrow $100,000 instead of paying cash for college. And I also borrow that money at a 6% loan rate. Now, over that same 20 years, if I had a 20-year loan payment, as you can see, my interest is actually going to go down every year that I make a payment. So as my account balance gets smaller and smaller and smaller over those 20 years, the actual annual interest paid is going down. So every year, the annual interest is going down until eventually that loan is paid off. So we can see the grand total of loan interest is going to be almost $72,000 over those 20 years. However, we're not done, okay? Because if I have to pay all that interest to the bank or to the government or to somebody else for borrowing that money, then all of those interest payments every year and all of that interest I'm paying is not going towards my retirement. So if I'm paying interest or if I'm paying taxes or whatever it is, if I'm paying interest to somebody else, then that money that I'm paying, that interest that I'm paying is not going towards my retirement that I could have been earning, let's say 6%. So if I could have been earning 6% on my retirement, all that interest is not going towards my retirement. So that means I have loan interest opportunity cost. What is the cost? Well, it's maybe 6%, 7%, 8%, whatever you could earn on your retirement. Let's take a look. So if I click on this, we can see that now I have what we call cumulative interest paid. This is not the annual interest. This is the total interest that I'm paying over the years. Now, again, as I pay this interest over the years, that interest is not going up here into my savings. And if I'm not putting that interest into my savings that could have earned 6%, then I have what we call an opportunity cost. And my opportunity cost is compounding because I could have put all that interest into my savings. So that means I have an opportunity cost on my interest. Now, hopefully this is making sense, but again, this is a lot. So this is something that is not what most people think about when they're paying for college. So if you need help, if you get stuck, again, click the button in the bottom right-hand corner of the calculator and book a call with us. Now, let's go on. We've got our loan interest that we're paying to the bank or to the government. We've got the lost interest that we could have been earning on that money. So we've got that opportunity cost on the loan interest. But what else? We've got two more. What else? If you take out a loan from the bank, from the government, maybe you use a mortgage to pay for your college, like a HELOC or a second mortgage, whatever the case may be. Most loans require a loan payment. So if I'm making a loan payment on a loan, that means that that loan payment is not going into my retirement. So if my loan payment is not going towards my retirement, then I have not just the loan payment, but I have the loan payment's opportunity cost. I've got the opportunity cost on my loan payments. Let's take a look. So if I click this button again, now I have my principal payment, which of course my principal payment is eventually all the way over here. My principal payment is going to be $100,000 of principal, not counting the interest, of course, just the principal. But if I make that loan payment, which in this example is $716, if I'm making a loan payment of $716, then that is $716 that is not going towards my savings. So then that means that I actually have an opportunity cost of my principal payments. Now, what are the four costs? We've got loan interest. We've got loan interest, opportunity cost, loan payments, and loan payments opportunity cost. Let's add all four of them up. If I click this button, I've now got all four. I've got my principal payment, I've got my interest, I've got my opportunity cost of my principal payments, and my opportunity cost of my interest. Now watch this. What is my total cost of ownership to borrow $100,000 at 6%? It's $331,000 over 20 years versus paying cash that I could have earned 6% on. It's the exact same. The cost to pay cash or use my savings is the exact same cost as borrowing the money. Now, I remember the first time I heard about this, it was mind-blowing, okay? I have always been taught, like you, that paying cash for everything is better, using savings to pay for college is better. But what if borrowing money could actually be better than paying savings? Let's take a look. What if I could actually borrow the money for less interest than I could earn on my savings? Which would be better? believe it or not, it would actually be better in this particular case to borrow the money than to pay cash for college. Now let's go back over here and put this back to 6% again, okay? But let's just say that we didn't have to make a loan payment. If we didn't have to make a loan payment, it is still going to cost me the same because now I have more interest if I'm not making any loan payments, which means I have more opportunity cost on all that interest. It's still going to cost me the same. But what if? What if I could now borrow for less interest and not have to make a loan payment? It's actually significantly less from a cost. It's going to cost me less to borrow the money without a loan payment. Now, believe it or not, there are loans that you can borrow. Okay, there are loans that you can borrow that don't require loan payments. We get into this in more detail in secret number 3, and I'll show you how to learn more about that in just a minute. But let's continue, and let's take a look at what would happen if we were able to put our loan payment towards our savings. Now we're talking massive difference, a massive difference between the cost of college in how we pay for it and the cost on our retirement or opportunity cost. So now let's go back to yours, to our calculator, and let's just say that we could earn 6% on our retirement, okay? And let's just say that we could potentially borrow money at 5%. Now, again, we can show you ways to reduce the college loans and loan payments and where you can find loans as low as 5%. And if you can borrow money for less than what you can earn on your savings, yes, it's going to cost you $1.1 million in this example. But if we could earn 6% on our retirement over the next, let's say, 20 years, then we are looking at a less cost to borrow the money than it would cost to actually pay cash. Now, I know, again, this is mind-blowing as we look at some of these numbers, but there could be scenarios where borrowing the money makes more sense than using your savings or paying cash. And you can play with these numbers in the calculator based on loan rates and based on the rate of return. Maybe you're getting 8% on your retirement. Well, then it would be a lot cheaper to borrow the money than to pay cash because of the opportunity cost. I remember I had a client once that said, hey, I love my 529 account, and you teach people not to use 529 accounts, but my 529 account is earning 8%. And I said, wow, that's unfortunate. And he said, what do you mean? 8% is a great return. And I said, yes, but if you could borrow money for less than 8%, it would be cheaper. But now you're going to use your 529 money to pay cash for college, giving up the 8% that you could have earned. That's the opportunity cost of paying for college. Okay, so what are some key takeaways from all this? Well, the first goal is to earn uninterrupted compounding interest for the rest of your life. Whether that means saving between now and when your kids go to college, if your kids were just born, or saving for next semester. It doesn't matter. Put your money towards savings, let it compound the rest of your life. Number 2, you always want to borrow at a lower interest rate than what you could earn on your savings. So let's just say you're earning over 6% on your savings and you could borrow money at 5%. Then we borrow money to pay for college or to pay back those college loans with. And then finally, if you aren't required to make loan payments, then don't. Let it compound. Let it compound at 5%. Let your money compound at 6% and keep putting all of your money towards your savings. And then you're going to have all of this money left over to use for retirement. It's like 2 cars going across the country. One car is going 60 miles an hour, the other car is going 50 miles an hour. By the time they leave New York and they get to LA, there's a massive difference between those two cars, and your money works the same way. Also, if you'd like to be able to help your kids graduate from college debt-free, then you're in luck, because guess what? If you use this strategy, you are not in debt, because you are using your money as collateral. And if we ever wanted to pay off our loans, you take your savings, pay off your loans. You're never in debt. Now, this requires a completely different way of looking at money and paying for something like college. In fact, there was this article that came out about all these billionaires and how they weren't paying their fair share in taxes, how their wealth grew by billions and billions of dollars, and they were only paying a very small fraction of that in taxes. But what was interesting about this article was how they were doing it. Now, in this article, it talks about how their wealth derives from the skyrocketing value of their assets, which is what I call uninterrupted compounding interest. For example, Jeff Bezos, his wealth goes up when Amazon stock goes up. Okay? And those gains are not defined by US tax laws as taxable or as income unless or until they sell. So if Jeff Bezos wants to go borrow money for a house on the beach or for his kids to go to college, instead of selling his stock, then is he going to borrow the money to buy that house on the beach, or is he going to sell his stock? Well, in this article, it says, how do these mega billionaires pay their mega bills while opting for dollar salaries and hanging on to their stocks? According to this document and all these experts, the answer is borrowing money. Lots of it. Now, I know this goes against what we've all been taught. We've always been trying to avoid loans, but what if it's a smarter way to pay for your kids' college? What if we can borrow money at a lower interest rate than what we could earn on our savings? And what if we didn't have to make payments until we died? Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that give us way more money in retirement? We talk about this in our final secret, secret number 3, which is how to help your kids pay for college and reduce that opportunity cost by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, it's true. We can help you to shave thousands off the sticker price of college. We can help you maximize financial aid and scholarship money. We can also help you to show you ways to save tens of thousands, even more, on college loans through all these advanced loan strategies. But what I'm talking about is how to save hundreds of thousands of dollars off the opportunity cost of paying for college by how you pay for college. So in the calculator, under opportunity cost, click this button and you can learn more about secret number 3. And this is what we call the retirement scholarship strategy. It's the biggest savings of all because you can save hundreds of thousands of dollars off the opportunity cost of paying for college. It works for any school. Public schools, private schools, community colleges. Maybe they want to go overseas to school. It doesn't matter. And the best thing about it, any student. It doesn't matter whether you have exceptionally gifted students or students that are gifted in other ways. And it doesn't require scholarships or financial aid. It applies to anyone. Also, works for these younger kids that are just saving. Maybe you're just saving for your kids' college. Or it works for kids already in high school and no money saved, or even in college, because it can be used to pay for college directly, or you can use this strategy to pay back college loans.